So for those that don't know me, my name is Brian Watson, and I'm the founder of the Opportunity Coalition. And we founded the Opportunity Coalition to encourage free enterprise, entrepreneurship, and collaboration. Small words, but hard to achieve sometimes. And so we host these events, and we have a speaker come in on the third Thursday of every month. People who have golden nuggets of wisdom to share. And to think about, as they share their story, how you could apply what they've learned in life to your own life, to your family, to your business. And you may want to go start a business. And there's some wonderful people like Mr. Shane to learn from with regards to that. This organization is very intentional about connecting good quality people together. We want to see new jobs created, employees found, new initiatives started. And when you get people in a room like this, some sparks happen and it gets very exciting. Later this evening, I will announce our first $1,000 award of the Opportunity Scholarship Program, which is funded from 50% of your ticket price from these events. Basically, we want to put our money where our mouth is and come alongside and help people go achieve their dreams. That's our passion. That's our drive. So thank you for your participation. You can always find out more about what we do, including the upcoming events and video of past events at opportunitycoalition.com. This is our fourth event this year, with previous speakers, including Steve Biggery of Stellar Restaurant Solutions, the Honorable Hank Brown, who represented Colorado in the U.S. Senate, and Colorado State Attorney General John Suthers. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Tom Shane, Executive Chairman of the Shane Company. His remarks are titled, Trust but Verify. Anybody know who said that? Mr. Ronald Reagan. And thank God he trusted and verified at the same time. Right? Trust but Verify, lessons from life and the diamond trade. And I can't wait to hear them. We're going to learn a lot tonight, I'm sure. Tom Shane is the founder and executive chairman of the Shane Company, the largest privately owned jeweler in the United States. The company is a direct diamond, ruby, and sapphire importer that operates 20 retail stores across the United States, and their website is shanecompany.com. The company was founded in 1971, the year of my birth. Anyone else born in 1971? And is based in Centennial, Colorado. The company promotes their retail locations and website through radio commercials and prominently feature Tom and the tagline, 1, 2, 3, the tagline, now you have a friend in the diamond business. That was kind of anemic. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, now you have a friend in the diamond business. You know, the first time I met Tom and you hear that voice and you try to put it to the radio, it's interesting. Tom graduated from the University of Colorado in 1970 with a degree in business administration. In 1971, he founded modern-day Shane Company, although his family has been in the jewelry business since the Great Depression. His grandfather, Charles Shane, launched the family into the jewelry business in 1929, when he purchased his first jewelry store in Cleveland, Ohio. Richard Shane, Tom Shane's father, joined his father and brother, Claude Shane, in the business after World War II. Several years afterward, Richard and Claude split their business interest into 2 large jewelry chains in the Midwest, opening their first stores with the name The Shane Company. Throughout the following decades, Tom Shane grew Shane Company from a 1-store operation into a jewelry store chain with 20 locations in 13 states. Help me welcome Tom Shane.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming here this evening. And I appreciate the comments that I've been flattered by, other than being reminded that I graduated college before he was born. That is really sort of a dig, I think. But anyhow, no, seriously, I appreciate your being here this evening. And what I'm going to try to do is focus on entrepreneurial types of issues that hopefully will have meaning to many of you. So when I'm talking about myself or my family or our company, it's really, hopefully you'll take it as an example, and you can, those of you that are in the entrepreneurial side maybe can get some ideas and hopefully relate to it and benefit from it. As I talk about myself personally, it's, again, with that in mind, it's not an ego issue. As to myself, I'm sort of independent by nature. I think most entrepreneurs are, and I view myself as an entrepreneur. Always wanted to be a serial entrepreneur, and as I get into this a little bit more, you'll see why I've actually kept building on the same thing, which is a bit of a frustration to a serial entrepreneur, but nonetheless. As an entrepreneur, I don't really like to depend on a lot of other people. I like to be in control. Growing up, my mother's favorite actor was, and singer was Frank Sinatra. And my favorite song to this day, and my theme song, is My Way. My grandfather never really wanted to have partners. He didn't really trust a lot of people. He didn't want to owe money to bankers for the same reason. As this is being recorded, I'm not going to speak against bankers, but I'm talking about my grandfather a long time ago. Okay. In 1971, when I opened my own business, graduated with a marketing degree, and with the marketing degree, my focus really was and always is on customers. What are their problems? What problems in the world are there that people have? And if you can identify problems and then come up with solutions to those problems, maybe then you can have a valid business. But if you're not solving problems, people don't need you. So it was winding down the Vietnam War. Nixon was president, and say what you want about him, a lot of people didn't trust him from either party. One of the first things Nixon did within a month after I started in August of '71, in September he got the US off the gold standard. I never understood why at that time, but I thought it was peculiar. As to marketing, I wanted to perpetuate the retail jewelry business that my family was in and that I grew up in. I had my own ways of doing things that I wanted to do. I didn't want to fight or conflict with my father's or my uncle's way of operating. So I graduated school in Boulder. I'm from Ohio. I can't say I grew up in Cleveland because I never did grow up. But anyhow, I wanted to stay in Colorado. So I opened my own store, and from a marketing perspective, I wanted the store to feel very local, locally owned. And again, this is the wind down of, well, it wasn't even the wind down in '71. The Vietnam War is going on, and there was a lot of protest. For those of you that have studied it, a few of you might be my age, know it firsthand, against that war. It was not a popular war. And with that negative sentiment, people were against big business. And therefore, I wanted to be a small, local operator. And I've never changed my desire to maintain that perception. We're very sensitive. The diamond industry, trust and integrity is so important. Our customers know, the only thing they know about the industry is they know nothing about it. So you're not comfortable making an expensive purchase, they know it's expensive, with something you don't know much about. You don't feel you're going to win on that deal. So the people have to trust you. There's a young man in the audience just asked me before I sat down here, before I stood up here, how do you, at age 22, have people trust you? I said, well, I was sensitive to that. One of the reasons that not only did we go on radio, which made me sound very local, but radio, they don't see my face. I didn't want anyone to know how old I was. Nobody'd buy from a 22-year-old kid a diamond ring. There ain't no way in hell that wasn't going to happen, so I didn't get confused. The next question I had to solve, did I want to have one store or multiple stores? And if I had, but again, the customer is so important to me, and I usually get distracted. Most entrepreneurs do. We're not real good with structure and everything. And I wanted to focus on customers. And if I was in a store instead of a corporate office, there's no way I could do anything but worry about the customers. And as important as that is, I can't run a business that way. So I didn't want to be a slave to one store. That meant I had to open multiple stores. 12 months later, I opened my second store. 24 months later, I had planned on opening my third, but there was another opportunity came along a few months prior to that, which I took. I was committed to the lease, so in point of fact, after 24 months, I had 4 stores, all in Colorado under 2 different names. 3 Shane Company and 1 a different operation, also jewelry, diamonds, under a different name. What was important though was that on a personal basis, with the Shane Company, I never really wanted to be a celebrity. A lot of people ask that question. People that know me actually know that if they're going to describe me personally, they might say he's damn near a recluse. He really likes to be by himself. So I don't like the celebrity status or the publicity. Having said that, that was a deliberate sacrifice that I made. It was not. It was deliberate. I don't say that it was an error. It was one of commission, but it was not my desire. It was not to build an ego. As far as the diamond industry is concerned, there's a lot of things that I like about it. First of all, everything is done on a handshake. When you're looking at a parcel of stones and you agree on the price, you shake hands and you say a word that, mazal. And what that is, it's a Hebrew word for luck or good luck, but Christians and Buddhists and everybody says it all over the world. It isn't a Jewish thing per se. And what it really is saying is from the buyer from the seller to the buyer, yes, I accept your price, and I hope you do as well, financially speaking, with these stones as I did. So it's a nice thing. But where I'm going, the diamond exchange has the diamond industry has exchanges or diamond clubs. There's half a dozen or so in the world. They're in Antwerp and Tel Aviv and Bombay and New York. There's in major diamond trading cities in the world. And you can become a member of those clubs if you're, once they know who you are and you're trusted. Now, and all of those clubs belong to a worldwide diamond federation. So there's one world federation. If we have a misunderstanding between the buyer and the seller, we call the head of the club, he's called a Basteur in Flemish, and he'll have 4 or 5 other members arbitrate and make a resolution as to what's right or wrong. It seldom happens, okay? So we're in an industry, it's a cash industry, millions of dollars take exchange on a handshake, worldwide, no lawyers, sorry guys, no contracts, whole nother world. And I learned, my favorite sport happens to be hardball, and we know how to play it. If you lie, if you cheat, if you do something dishonest, you're out. This ain't 3 strikes, it's not American baseball. 1 strike, you're out. Worldwide, for life. For life, worldwide, you're out. See, we don't need judicial systems. Everybody knows what the rules are. So I like that. I do like that. I did like it. For those of you that are observant, I'm wearing a little pin on my lapel here. I was knighted by the King of Belgium, and that was really quite an honor. Having said that, the only time that I'm asked to wear it is when I'm wearing a tuxedo to a formal event, or in a case like this, where there's a camera that's live on me and I'm speaking officially. I'm not interested in people calling me Sir Thomas. Again, I don't have that kind of an ego. But you're laughing, but there's plenty of people that have that, that use that and that capitalize on it. That's not my way. I'm proud of it, but again, I like to be very understated. Integrity is so important, and this is what our customers need. Not to mention our vendors, our merchants, the other people we do business with. The customers have to feel that trust. And our customers are our boss. Now, yeah, I made a serious mistake a few years ago and I trusted and I didn't verify, and that hurt me, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, I'm in an industry that's depending on people that are working with integrity and on trust. It's a unique world industry. There isn't too many others I know like it. As far as how fast I would grow, I only want to buy what I can afford to pay for, and I pay cash as I buy. I think I buy better that way, but again, it keeps it very simple. The man that taught me the industry outside of my family was a Belgian, my diamond agent in Antwerp. And understand, I'm a 22-year-old kid, and what he has to say is two things. He says, first of all, when you look at a parcel of diamonds, you don't need a jeweler's loupe. It should smile at you. Is it of interest? If so, then you can pursue it. If it's not, you say, thank you, it's not for me, give it back. The other thing he said is a guy, and ladies, this isn't a sexist thing, you can apply it with makeup to the example, but he would say to me, what a man has to do every morning is shave. Now, in order to do that, he has to look in the mirror. And he better damn well like what he sees. So I think that's also a good lesson. You should be proud of how you conduct yourself. I've learned about the U.S. Traveling all over the world. And I've learned about it as others throughout the world see America. I opened my American eyes when I was in my 20s. On a personal note, I contemplated at one time, years ago, a short stint in politics, but I determined not to do it. As a business issue, you have to understand, a retailer, as soon as he goes into politics, he loses half his customer base. It doesn't matter which side you're on, you lose 50% up front. And then there's a second issue also. What I wanted in going into politics was the same thought process that I think our ancestors had a couple hundred years ago in this country when they founded it, which is people that would be successful in life, successful in business, would give a few years of their life as a sacrifice to serve their country or their city or their state or whatever the region, then go back to their real business, go back to their real jobs. It wasn't considered a full-time job, a full-time career. And the difference is, in those days they could focus on what was best long-term for the country, not on being re-elected or helping their particular party. So there's some issues there. For those of you that knew when I'm interested to hear that. He obviously said it more than once. One of the honors I had in my life back in the 80s, there are very few people that I truthfully idolize and worship as heroes and really love, living or dead. Ronald Reagan happened to have been one of them. And I had the extreme pleasure of an honor of being invited to the Broadmoor when he and his wife were staying at the Broadmoor early in his first term, and with 4 or 5 other men from different businesses in Colorado. And we spent about 2 hours in his private suite there. And the comment, one of the men asked a question. It was in I think the steel business, if I recall, and it had something to do with the Russians. And they asked President Reagan, he asked President Reagan, but can you really trust the Russians? And Reagan did give that answer. He said, of course, so long as I can verify it. Now that was just in private, so I don't know how that word got out. Obviously he said it more than once. But again, I think that's something that any of us can learn in terms of business dealings, or I don't want to say personal dealings because that's not what I'm supposed to be talking about, but you can expand it as you wish. Marketing is my primary field, and I think that to be good in marketing, you really have to understand the people, the customers. So I like to view myself like a chameleon on the wall somewhere, and this is true worldwide. Wherever in the world I am, I like to fit in, mix in, blend, don't stand out to the local culture. And then I can watch and I can observe, and people act. I mean, even in America, I wouldn't wear a cowboy hat and cowboy boots unless I'm riding a horse. So I certainly wouldn't do it overseas. But I like to really see how people react, and I like to study their habits worldwide, and how they act, how they respond, what motivates them. And as we open stores in different cities, I like to really understand the people. And in a minute, I'm going to be talking about international things, and it's the same thing there. I think you get a good idea, and that's some interesting skill sets that's not boring. Long-term financial goals. I made a bet by virtue of the business that I am in, and I don't offer this as a political comment, but whatever side you're on politically, however your political views are, by putting my money into diamonds and gold and world commodities, whether I wish this to be the case or not, it is in fact a long-term bet against the US dollar. Nobody can refute that. You can say it's, you don't have to say it was wise, but that's the reality. Instead of being in US, all of a sudden I'm in worldwide. I'll admit I did it deliberately. So I really wanted to accumulate world assets. On an economic standpoint, the way that I like to run my business, and marketing is my major, finance and real estate were my minors at CU Boulder, but so I do understand a little bit about corporate finance. And in retail, you have to turn your inventory. So all I want to do is accumulate more and more diamonds and gold with our profit. I don't want to take cash out of the company. I want to have more inventory, because that's my long-term strategy. So therefore, if I'm going to be a responsible retailer from a financial standpoint and turn the inventory, and I'm buying more than the store or stores can financially justify, well, there's only one thing I have to do with that surplus goods. Don't need it under my mattress. Open new stores. So that's how we are building or growing or expanding the business. And again, we do it debt-free, and I think that works. I said that I made a very bad mistake. In 2008, I'm sensitive, there's a camera, I'm being recorded, so I can only say it was my opinion that what we suffered was an act of sabotage. Betrayed by someone that I trusted very much, who forced our company into, to file for bankruptcy. And we had a huge amount of debt put on us within a couple of months. And my opinion is that this man wanted to take over our company after I, quote, would have lost it, and gone public with it, and made several $100 million within a couple of years by flipping it. In point of fact, we filed for bankruptcy, and we agreed that voluntarily, not in 2008, that we would pay back 100 cents on the dollar to all of the creditors. We're not quite there yet, but if you look at the total debt, we've got 90+% paid back, so we're almost there. Again, first of all, it's the way that you talk about integrity. I don't need to hide or seek protection, as they like to euphemistically call it, under the bankruptcy code. And to our creditors, they've suffered many bankruptcies of American companies, because many of our creditors are located all over the world. And we wanted to be sure that we were the exception. I think the most that they ever got back was 17, 18 cents. Most of them got nothing back on the dollar. So we're paying 100 cents back, and we're doing it as quickly as we can without hampering our ability to run the company. So it's really a win-win. Needless to say, it was a bad mistake that I made by trusting and not verifying this thing. I did profit, though, in some respects from this experience. My son, who's sitting here tonight, joined the company when we were in desperation. He's also a marketing major from Boulder, and he wanted to do his own thing just to prove that he didn't need to inherit Daddy's successful business, I think. Not that he was against it, but he wanted to prove himself that he's competent on his own. Meanwhile, so my real profit there is he's taken over the American side of the business. In the meanwhile, we have a factory in Bangkok that is manufacturing jewelry. It's a small factory, maybe 100 and a few employees. And I'm over there frequently buying rubies and sapphires anyhow. I live there about half the year. And in this factory, we're producing less than 20%, it's in the teens, of the jewelry that we sell in our own store, and I don't want to produce any more of our jewelry. I like to buy from the top vendors all over the world, the top manufacturers, the top designers, and we supplement it to our stores. So I've got a hard limit on that. Having said that, what I'm trying to do now is make this a worldwide, establish a worldwide customer base that I can sell manufactured jewelry to, which allows me as an entrepreneur to continue what I enjoy doing. Finally, I'm able to start a new business after 40 years. And B, to our family, it's bringing in an income stream, or hopefully will. We're just getting, it's a startup, but we'll bring in an income stream that is not dependent upon the U.S. economy. That's working out well. And I'm not going to mention C, that I got out of my son's hair and let him run the American business. And he does a better job than I do because I'm not a good administrator. It's not one of my areas of strength. I have no desire to retire. Work is my pleasure. It's my hobby, it's my life. I enjoy life. I love to work. as a fun thing. I'm not a workaholic. I play and I play hard, but always the work comes first. That's what I'm interested in. It's what I enjoy. So the idea of retiring is not on my mind. What would I do? Play golf? It's not my interest. So I enjoy what I'm doing. It's not like it's a burden. I do view myself, though, more as a citizen of the world, more than an American. I don't like to admit that too much because that's confusing to some people. But I really think that I have a worldly outlook, and when I'm in mixed company, meaning with people from different countries, I understand their perspectives and their local governments or their local problems, and I love discussing those kind of things. And again, to wrap this up, from a marketing perspective, understanding the customer and understanding their issues and their problems from their perspective, I think is so important. And this allows me to do that. What questions might people have? Brian, you want to?
Yeah, let me start that off if you
Please.
don't mind. I want to remind everybody as we do these questions that it is being recorded, so I have to make that disclaimer. So I've got a couple of questions for you first.
Please.
And then we'll open it up to
Wonderful.
questions in the crowd. And so my first one is, what lessons did you learn growing up that stay with you now?
Probably the importance of being honest. And a lot of this, when we discuss, the most important thing a company has is its culture. And our corporate culture is based upon these lessons. Being honest. First, honest with yourself. Again, you look in the mirror, you better like what you see. And we encourage our employees, if you don't know something, admit it. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. We would prefer them to say, I don't know, let me find out and I'll get back to you. But nonetheless, don't bullshit us. Don't say something that you think it is as a fact if you don't know that it is a fact. Admit what you don't know. That is a strength. Just being candid, I think is probably the single most important thing, and being sensitive to your environment.
Could you imagine going into every retail store and if they didn't know something, they'd actually be honest with you? Could you imagine that? It would be revolutionary. Would hardball, one strike and you're out, work in every business?
You asked the question, Brian, in every business. I think it depends what, it can work in life if it's applied as I illustrated it. If we're talking about integrity, which is what not making a mistake. We're not talking about making honest mistakes. We encourage our people to make mistakes. And I want to clarify that. Risk. If you don't take risk, you can't succeed. My buyers that buy fashion items, they better have a certain amount that don't sell. They're mistakes. Because if they don't, when our customers walk in, the other 95% of the stuff they're also going to yawn at. Okay? For it to be exciting, they're going to make mistakes. So I want to be sure that that's clear. If somebody's lying or cheating or stealing or self-dealing, they're out. And I think that should work in all businesses. I think that should work in all relationships.
Timeless principles. With that, let's open it up for questions from the audience. Dr. Pawonga?
Yeah, Tom, looks like you've traveled the world a lot. What have you learned about the way the U.S. is perceived from the outside world, and how the U.S. perceives the outside world? And what kind of compromise do you make to make sure you are relevant in both areas?
I will answer that in reverse order, if I may, Doctor. I try to operate without focusing on being American. I try not to operate as an American. I don't mean that I'm hiding my identity. I don't mean I'm not proud of it. I don't want to be misunderstood. But I want to be perceived as an expert in the specific area that I'm in, not the country where I was born or where I live or of my ethnicity or whatever. I want to be judged based on the area that I'm working in. How America is perceived is not something that I'm overly pleased to be discussing on a camera and recording. I would say, I would say that it's not perceived, Americans are not perceived well. I would say that there's a terrible resentment to our mentality of superiority. I would say there's a terrible resentment to the arrogance that most Americans display. And that goes from tourists in a foreign country to political people and how we act and conduct ourselves politically, in my opinion. I would say that there's a perception of only caring about America, that Americans think that Americans are superior, and we're not well respected for that. We're resented. How Americans see others, I would say that many of our political leaders, including many of our ambassadors, don't focus on how they are perceived by or within the country that they're actually serving. I think their interest is limited to how they are helping pursue America's interests back home. When I was in an embassy in Myanmar a few months ago, and the U.S. Embassy is still calling that country Burma, we have a problem. And I don't need to go into more detail.
Papa, you had a question?
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Chen, for your time. My name is Papa. I am from Senegal, West Africa. And hearing you share your experience in the diamond industry, and it's such a trustworthy industry. And we know in Africa, we talk about the blood diamond.
Yes.
We talk about how many people have been killed in the diamond industry there. Could you share with us your point of view and what can we do to make sure that the diamond industry in Africa can be trustworthy the same way it's in the United States?
It's a very excellent question. Allow me a circuitous route answer, please. I was asked before the implementation of what is today known as the Kimberley process to participate in a conference telephone call with 3 or 4 U.S. senators and 3 or 4 U.S. representatives from Congress. And they were asking my opinion as an expert about the wisdom of this plan that they were contemplating called the Kimberley process. And they felt a need to do something. And I was strongly opposed to the concepts that they were proposing. And I tried to make it extremely clear that A, I was well aware of the problem, B, it is a terrible problem. It's very real and it's very terrible, or it was at that time. It still exists, but not to the extent. Having said that, my problem, my objection, was that the typical US reaction to anything is to have big government, have a bigger government, and a bigger government solution. And what that would do would be to cause an entire industry to exist of paperwork. And that paperwork would increase the cost of diamonds to everybody worldwide, which would hurt the people that are mining it the most. That's A. B, it would foster a fraudulent industry, a criminal industry of dealing in false papers and counterfeit papers, and everybody would lose. They thanked me for my time and implemented the Kimberley process. The reality is that people have to take control at a local level to the extent that they can of running their society, running their country. And by making the issues clear to the rest of the world, honorable people will support the right cause. A not dissimilar situation from a political solution standpoint exists, and I'm going to come back to the blood diamond in a minute, but in Asia, with the rubies that George W. Bush said we're not allowed to import from Burma, and Barack Obama, first thing he did in office was reaffirm that embargo. And you've got, doing that put 25,000 people in Thailand out of work, and it did no good for anybody in Myanmar. And the people that were doing the corrupt things are still doing it, and nothing has changed. The good people worldwide are very cognizant of what they are doing and whether it's right or wrong. And we can discuss slavery going back thousands of years, and this problem is continuing and has continued and has never stopped for thousands of years. There are different places in the world where it's more endemic than others. And there are different times in the history of, in current history, when it's focused upon or attention is drawn to it more than others. And some things, when all of a sudden it sells newspapers, there's more awareness of it. Or they make a movie out of it and there's more awareness of it. The reality is that there's a right way and a wrong way to conduct your business. And if you're dealing in products that have abuses in the system, you need to find out and be sensitive to where those abuses are, and be sure to avoid them, and be sure who you're supporting or not supporting. And that, to me, is the ultimate responsibility of the diamond manufacturers. And if they're that insensitive, then the people that are buying from them should choose other vendors. I can assure you that we are given multiple opportunities to buy product that is not legally sourced or that is stolen. And if it's stolen from some lady's house and we buy it in one of our stores, or if it's a blood diamond or something else and there's a slavery or God knows what else that's improper, that's immoral, that's illegal, we pay attention to our sources, and we're very aloof, we're snobbish in the mindset of some. There are certain dealers that we simply won't buy from. I don't care what the product is, I don't care how cheap it is. we won't associate with. And you need to know the reputation of who you're dealing with. And I think those are the real ways to solve these problems. Again, in this particular example, you're dealing with a lot of corrupt governments that are, and it's whether it's tribal, tribe against tribe, or government against government, or whatever it may be. The government leaders frequently are the ones that are getting the rich, and their accounts in Switzerland seem to keep growing. So I understand how that works.
That's a great question. Another question?
Over here.
Yep.
Hey, Tom, I have an advertising marketing question for you.
Please.
You're unique in how you get to advertise yourself, using yourself throughout the country. I presume you're in each market that you're in as an advertiser. I came out of the car industry years ago where dealers in Denver would buy a store in Phoenix, and they would try to advertise and market the same way in Denver as they're marketing now in Phoenix, and it would never work. So I'm curious how you would suggest to a business owner or somebody who's doing marketing and advertising to get their product out there the way you do it, to help promote that.
Well, as I said earlier, you really have to know, if you're in marketing, are you marketing locally or nationally or internationally? And we play with our message for the different markets that we are in. As we don't put the same styles, fashion-wise, in San Francisco, where we have 3 stores in the Bay Area, as we would say in Louisville, Kentucky, the message may also be a little bit different on the radio. If you're landing at an airport, renting a car, driving around town for a week with the radio on, you hear my ads, you wouldn't notice it. But we might, in some cities, talk about the quality with 40% of our ads. In other cities, it might be 15%, and we may have a 30% emphasis on savings or value or something else. So we try to weigh the message to the market. You have to tailor the message to your market.
In the back?
Yeah, obviously, thank you for sharing with us today. Obviously, you're very intentional in the way you pursued your business, and you mentioned it was a success bringing your son on board. I was curious, in light of the term like legacy, what do you hope to impart in your family or your customers or this community in light of kind of who you are and what you're doing?
Well, I'd like to bifurcate that also a little bit, because we being as a family, we can do good with donations and charities and those type of things to help the overall community or communities in which we operate. That's one thing. As far as to my family, I think that the fundamental values of integrity, of respect for others, understanding the needs, the wants, the sensitivities of our customers or potential customers. I think these are values. Our company's culture, I would hope, outlives me and my son Rorden, and if my kids ultimately have kids that are interested in going into the business, they shouldn't be forced into it, but if they happen to be interested, that culture wouldn't change over time. Procedures and policies change, and your image can change slightly. In some cities, if you just want to focus on being, in some cities we're considered more upper middle class, and others we're considered more middle class in terms of who we target. And that's done by design, it's done deliberately. It's also impacted a little bit by competition if they're engaging in a head-to-head war with you, war of words or whatever. But the fundamental values of doing what's right and treating people fairly, we don't teach our employees that the customer is always right, and whatever they want, let them cheat us and take advantage of us. That is not the message we give our employees. Having said that, we empower our employees. They don't need to get manager's signature if they have to break one of our rules. They're allowed to do it. And if there's a question, we will lean in the favor of the customer, as long as we feel that there's integrity on the part of the customer. The instruction that we give to each employee is, and I preface it with the question, well, what would you do if you owned the company? If it was your money, how would you decide? And what I ask them to do is to treat our dollars at least with as much concern as you would your own. And I don't know if that exactly answers it, but these are the types of values that I think can go down multi-generational and that are lasting in any community, anywhere in the world. Those things work.
2 more questions. Matt?
You touched on risk as being a necessity to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I'm curious to know, in life and in entrepreneurship, there's good risk and there's bad risk. What principles do you live by to measure what's good and what's bad from a risk perspective?
Well, how much risk does one want to tolerate? And I think the realistic issue is, do you have more to win or to lose? And I would like to think that while we aren't afraid to make decisions that are not proven and try things that are new or open new stores or new ventures in different parts of the country or the world or whatever it is, that we're not risking everything that we have. And we are not so hungry that we need to take great risk. We have no need to violate the principles and borrow a lot of money in order to expand. What for? There's no need. Why take that risk? What for? What we own, we own. We own it free and clear. When it comes to any types of decisions, what makes sense? And we're interested in everything long term. We're not interested in going public, by way of example. First of all, like I started with Frank Sinatra's song, I like to do it my way. I don't need to answer to a bunch of outsiders. Secondly, it's a distraction. And this way we're much more private, we're intimate in our decisions, and we're a lot more responsive. We don't think quarter to quarter, only we think long term. So we have long-term philosophy, and that in and of itself can be risky or cause some things that would be considered risky. It's a matter, I think, of common sense, really, more than anything else. I don't think there's a textbook answer to that.
One last question?
Yeah, Tom, what do you do for marketing research, and what would be 2 important questions that would be unique to the diamond business?
Marketing research in existing markets.
What does your company do for marketing research?
In existing markets?
Or
if we're going to look into considering opening in a new market? It's 2 different questions.
How about opening in a new market, and what would be specific to the diamond business, just out of curiosity? What would be 2 marketing questions you'd want to know?
Well, we look at a lot of things. If it's going to be a new market, we look at competition. And it's not a question of can we compete. It's a question, do we bring anything to the dance? Are there other jewelers that are serving that market so well that we really don't have much to add? Or is it an underserved market? And this goes back to what I said earlier, understanding the customer, in this case the customer in that particular market that we're looking at, and do they have a problem? And if they don't, we don't need to go there. I don't think the diamond business per se would have unique questions to it. I'm more focused on the how the people perceive themselves, where we would fit in, whether it's from a financial standpoint or what's the economy. I'll study the city or the market. I'll look, is it growing or declining, and make a judgment. I don't say we wouldn't go into a city that's dropping, but it would depend on, our location might be different. I look at all kinds of factors about psychographics and demographics and what target is well served. And when you're in marketing, you're always stereotyping different types of people. You're putting them in large classes, and it isn't personal. You can be wrong on an individual, but in a broad sense, that's the only way you can work. And what are their needs, what are their desires, and can we help them? Can we do them some good? Because if not, we don't need to be there.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Tom. You know, some of our speakers, when they come, they provide free handouts at the end. I don't know if Tom brought a small bag of diamonds to hand out. I recommend you see him.
It's not diamonds.
As you know, when you bought your ticket to tonight's event, or bought a season pass for the entire year, half of that amount goes to the Opportunity Coalition's scholarship program. We believe in giving back to our community, in supporting great entrepreneurial activity, and in young people. The first award of $1,000 we're announcing tonight hits all three of these marks. It goes to the entrepreneurship programs at the Young American Center for Financial Education, a 501c3. Its affiliate, Young Americans Bank, an FDIC chartered institution with its flagship in Cherry Creek, with branches around the state. It was founded in 1987 by cable TV pioneer Bill Daniels to give children the tools and training to open a bank account, manage their money, and learn the basics of business, economics, and how to be an entrepreneur. My children attended the Ameritown. I don't know if anyone had their kids go through that program. Phenomenal program. In more than 25 years of operation, they have served more than 70,000 young American bank customers and 500,000 nonprofit participants. Pretty big impact. The $1,000 grant from the Opportunity Coalition will go to support their entrepreneurship programs, which includes a business competition for young entrepreneurs as young as 6 years old, up to age 21. What were you doing when you were 6 years old? I think I had a worm farm at the time, actually. A marketplace to learn customer service and marketing, and entrepreneurial summer camps for those in grades 2 through 5. We at the Opportunity Coalition want to help them prepare the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs, so we will be helping fund those programs with this grant. And I say we, it's all of us here, and thank you for your participation here. As we go through each one of the speakers, I'd like to pull out some of the golden nuggets of wisdom that were stated. There were so many in your speech. Customers are the boss. They must feel the trust. Think if you worked in a business that things were done on a handshake. No lawyers, no contracts. Your word is your bond. Or one strike and you're out. Has anyone had one strike maybe in their business? Pretty powerful. Tough business. And one of the things that I really liked is that all of us were affected by the down economy of 2008. And when you have an entrepreneur like Tom, you get knocked down, you're going to get back up. And he did. And I really appreciate and respect him for what he's done. I've gone out and tried to pay every single creditor 100 cents on the dollar. You know, the bankruptcy code of the United States of America is one of the great blessings for business in terms of having it operate, where you can actually have a tough time and reorganize and still create opportunity. And some people look at that maybe as, oh, it's a scapegoat for corporations just to get out of their debts. But you know what? He kept people employed. And in spite of that, he voluntarily agreed to pay his creditors. Ron, I'm sure you appreciate that as a banker. Really appreciate you, Tom, for that. Rorden, I also want to thank you for being here. Rorden, his son, is the president of the Shane Company as well. Our upcoming events, we have Doug Simmons, president of Enstrom Candies. Anyone ever had Enstrom toffee? Yeah. It's not pretty around our house around Christmas time. He will be speaking on June 19th. On July 17th, we have Dick Franklin, the director of the Clean Tech Open and father of U.S. Olympian Missy Franklin. On August 21st, we have John Harple, founder and president of Mercator Energy, a natural gas services brokerage and research company representing both producers and end users. On September 18th, we have Josh Stewart, founder and CEO of XJet. XJet opened its flagship location at Denver Centennial Airport in 2007, and plans are underway to launch their first global hub at Dubai World Central. On October 16th, we have Bruce Benson, has history in the uranium business, and now is the president of the University of Colorado, and is the longest serving CU president in more than half a century. Again, I want to thank all of you for being here. Please reach out to your friends and to invite them. I also want to thank Christina Whalen for checking everybody in and being helpful there. And I also want to thank Elle Hughes for putting on the food and the drink. Thank you all. Have a good night.